I'm having so much fun trying to find all these shelters. These Cabman Shelters were once familiar sights on London's streets. They were designed by the architect Maximilian Clark and all fashioned in this lovely green colour. 61 were known to have been built between 1875 and 1950, but only 13 actually remain today. This particular shelter is a later variant of Maximilian Clark's ornamental cabin design. Externally, the structure is completely unchanged. It's the hipped roof and the louvered ventilation lantern, all original features that remain today. It also serves coffees and teas and light snacks, and there's a thriving little cafe for cab drivers and passers-by as well. So in this video I'm going to take a walk around the streets of London and discover the location of all 13 that remain. They were the idea of a gentleman called George Armstrong, and he was the editor of the Globe newspaper. He came up with the idea to establish these Cabman Shelters after he was unable to get a cab during a storm because all the drivers had gone to the local pubs. And that was the only place that they could rest. And they would ask a passerby or somebody else to look after their cabs for them, and quite often they were vandalised, broken into, or stolen. So they were a great idea as a way of looking after the cab drivers of London. And this particular shelter has a pole on the side for tethering a horse to. So if you go through this video, I'll look more at the history of these Cabman Shelters and also the history of taxis in London as well. So let's go and find the next one. Behind me in this very busy junction is the second Cabman Shelter. This is on Warwick Avenue, and it was constructed in 1888 and restored in 1994. And again, this one is exactly the same as the previous one in terms of design, with the vented cupola on the top, and also has the pole on the side for tying horses to. But this one's currently undergoing some renovation. There's a lot of traffic here as well, so let's go and find the next one. And this shelter is on Kensington Park Road at Notting Hill Gate. And the shelter is actually called Ye Old Green Hut. That's what it's known as. There's a couple of old photographs on the front to show what the shelter would have been like when it was erected back in 1909. And this one's a little cafe, and anyone can stop and take a drink and a snack from the cafe. You can't go in, of course, because that's reserved purely for taxi drivers, but anybody can go to the outside and have a coffee, which is quite nice. Now let's keep walking and trying to find number 4. And here we are on Kensington Road, and the 4th of my Cabman Shelters. This is one of the oldest in London, and it dates from around 1888. I've had a look at the outside. It's very similar to the one we saw first up at Wellington Place. There's also the same photographs on the outside as well, and they're also of Wellington Place. So that's it's nice to see another Cabman Shelter here in London. But let's move on and try and find a 5th. And here's the next shelter. This one's on Thurloe Place, just outside the Victoria and Albert Museum, which is one of my favourite museums in the whole of Europe. I think it really is a brilliant museum. But let's talk about this Cabman Shelter. It was built in 1897 to Clark's design, and looking at it you can see it's pretty much very similar to the other ones that we've seen already. But it used to stand in the middle of the road. You can see where the shelter used to be. Because of the hotel, it had to be moved. So they moved it here. And it's glad they did move it. It didn't sort of scrap it. But this one is not actually in use at the moment, and it doesn't have a railing on the side to tie up a horse either. But I suppose we should talk a little bit about taxis, because the aristocracy began to use private four-wheeled coaches around 1580. These very large, cumbersome coaches. And by about the 1620s, their numbers actually started to increase. So we started to get traffic jams in London around the 1620s. Nothing's changed. So there had to be some sort of regulation. And regulation was brought in back in 1636, and they were limited to 50 carriages on the road. By 1662, that limit had increased to 400 and 700 by 1694. Again, these were large coaches, could seat several people, probably 4 to 6 people. But in 1814, a new two-wheeled single horse cart came into being, and it was known as the cabriolet. And that's where we get the word cab from cabriolet. Today a cabriolet is a soft top open car, but back then it was a two-wheeled little carriage pulled by a single horse. But in 1834 a lighter cab was designed by a man called Joseph Hanson, and he patented his design. And this of course was made famous by Sherlock Holmes. Often see Sherlock Holmes jumping into a hansom cab, especially in the Sherlock Holmes featuring Basil Rathbone, which I think was probably the best Sherlock Holmes. But don't get me started on that one, because I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan, and Jeremy Brett was good as well. So yes, made famous, the hansom cab, made famous by Sherlock Holmes. But black cabs are a familiar sight in London today. They're absolutely everywhere. Almost every other vehicle seems to be a black taxi. And by 2013, the numbers of black taxis on the roads was up to 22,000. But the numbers today are slightly in decline, at around 15 to 17,000 cars, black taxis on the roads. But there's been a rise in cycle hire and e-scooters. People are being more health conscious and walking a bit more. I've certainly done a lot of walking today. And of course Ubers as well. You can just go onto your phone, book an Uber, and it's very convenient compared to standing on the street and waiting for a taxi. But the taxi drivers of London have to undergo something called the knowledge. That was initiated back in 1865. So when you hailed your taxi and jumped into it, you told the cabbie, the driver, where to go, and he instantly knew the best route to get to your destination as quickly as possible. And that's all called the knowledge. But unfortunately, Ubers and other private hires and minicabs are not required to have the knowledge. So they rely on sat-navs and maps and other things. So if you are in London and want the full London experience of travelling around in a taxi, then take a black cab, because they are the knowledgeable people. They know where they're going in London, and if there's a traffic jam, they know how to get round it. Your Uber driver will not. I thought I'd take a taxi down to my next Cabman Shelter, which is located on the Chelsea Embankment. I've done enough walking today, starting off up at Wellington Place and walking all the way down here. Must have walked several miles, so it's nice to be travelling in style in a London taxi. And this is quite a modern taxi. It's actually an electric one. It's the first time I've ridden in an electric vehicle and an electric taxi. So it's nice to ride in one, and they are very, very quiet, which is nice. But I can't remember the last time I rode in a taxi. I think it was back in the late 80s or early 90s. but it's nice to travel in style, and I've got a friendly cabbie as well, so that always helps. So I'm enjoying my ride now down to the Chelsea Embankment. Well, what a brilliant taxi ride that was. Took a few minutes to get down here, and the cabbie was so friendly and very obliging, so it's nice to give him a tip as well. So I'll put the actual amount on the screen plus the tip. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. And I'm here now at the next one, which is on Cheyene Walk. It's also referred to as the pier due to its proximity, the Cadogan pier. And the shelter actually was built in 1912. It was originally positioned on Royal Hospital Road, which is just a little bit, well, sort of halfway between here and Victoria Coach Station. And it's been recently refurbished as well, and that was funded by the Heritage of London Trust. So it's nice to sit here, and it's also a cafe, so I can have a little coffee. It's my first one today, which is nice. So I'm going to sit here for a few minutes, watch the world go by, and then move on to St George's Square, Pimlico, which is the location for the next Cabman Shelter. Cheers. Quite a nice walk up from Cadogan Pier. Took about 40 minutes, but really enjoyable. And there we go, there's the next one behind me. Here on Looper Street, the back end of St George's Square. The shelter, which dates from 1893. Had some fire damage in recent years, but they seem to have repaired that. And it's here serving teas and coffees to anybody who walks past. Again, the design is the same as the others. It's really rather nice to see it, but there's a few more to go. We're over the halfway point, and behind me is St Saviour's Church. It's the war memorial for the church. But it's nice here, and again it's a very busy junction here. Lots of vehicles around, and I dare say when the shelter was installed back in 1893, it may have been quite a busy area as well. But there we go. Let's head on out to Victoria Station and to the next Cabman Shelter. And this shelter is located in Grosvenor Gardens, just round the corner from Victoria Railway Station. The shelter was originally built in 1906 on Hobart Place, but relocated here sometime after that date. Not sure why. The shelter bears the decorative ribbon garlands and the CSF monogram, giving a nod to the Cabman's Shelter Fund, which still maintains all these city shelters. And many of the shelters actually do feature that decoration. And that fund was established back in 1875. But if taxi drivers want to go inside, they have to follow a few rules. There's no drinking, there's no gambling, and there's no swearing. And the only seats 12 people. So if a 13th person was to go in, I wonder what would happen. I'm sure there's a cabman's policy. First one in and last one out. If you're a taxi driver, maybe you know the answer and can leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know. But there's a few more still to find, so let's go and find them. The next shelter is here on Cadogan Place on Pont Street. It was constructed around 1892 by the Cabman's Shelter Fund and replaced one of the earlier Cabman shelters that had been erected in 1875 because that one fell into disrepair. rebuilt shelter was opened by the then MP for Chelsea, a person called Algernon Whitmore, and cost around £160 to £200 to actually build. The shelter was built in Clark's design, although some features were omitted due to simplified 20th century repairs. But it's still a nice cabman shelter here on Pont Street. And it doesn't have the railing around the side for the horses, but maybe the original shelter did. And the one we saw right at the beginning of the video at Wellington Place was probably how it looked. But the ornamental design is slightly different at the top. It's only got the little cupola with the lantern shutters on the side, and it doesn't have the side bits either. So slightly different, but it's a nice shelter to look at. This one's also a cafe, and it seems to be doing excellent trade. People are buying coffees and takeaway buns and cakes and whatever that they sell. But it's lovely to see it. So let's go and find the next one. I'm having so much fun trying to find all these shelters. And this shelter is on Northumberland Avenue. And anybody walking down the Jubilee Bridge, which is what I'm currently standing on, the first thing they notice is the Cabman Shelter. And this one dates from 1915. It was built to replace Clark's original ornamental shelter, which was built here back in 1882. And this one still has the railings on the side to tether horses. And all the ornamental feature at the top, the little vented cupola, still remains exactly the same as the one we saw right at the beginning of the video on Wellington Place. But this one is just a shelter, I think, for taxi cabs, cab drivers. They're not serving any food or refreshments from this one, but I guess there's a reason for that. But it's nice to see a shelter that's almost intact, as it would have been built back in 1882. So let's keep walking and find the next one. Just 3 more to find. And the next shelter is on Temple Place. This is a very rare example because it's almost unaltered since it was built back around 1900. You can see the CSF logo in the top, and also the lantern on the top, quite different to the other lanterns on the other shelters that we've seen. Really nice to see this one, and lots of flowers around the side, which is nice. And the railings for the horses as well still maintains its original features. And as cabman shelters go, I think this is the most exciting one that I have seen so far. It really is lovely, and hope they preserve this, because there doesn't seem to be any activity here, unless it's just open for taxi cab drivers and not anybody else. But I've walked past here before and they have sold teas and coffees and things, so maybe one day they'll reopen it. But it's nice to see original shelter like this and in such good condition given its age. But just 2 more to find, so let's go and find them. And this one is on Hanover Square. It's propped up on bricks. So I guess with all the building work that's going on here, they may be relocating it or repositioning it. But it's all closed off and railings around it. Looking a bit sorry for itself. But again, it's a classic design with all the usual motifs around the top, CSF design, and the lantern at the top. It's nice to see it, but it dates from 1897. So hopefully in a few years' time, when they've re-sited it, it'll be open to the public and serving teas and coffees along with all the others. But it's nice to see it. It's a shame it's looking so tired. But there we go, just 1 more to find. So let's go and find it. Oh, Oh. And here we are, the final one, number 13, here on Russell Square. Wow, what a brilliant time I've had walking around all of these shelters. It's taking about 7 hours. But this is a lovely shelter, and it's just the same as all the others. And this was built in 1897 and restored in 1987. And I've been chatting to the person who runs the shelter, and actually rents it from the trust, and actually runs it as his business. So they're obviously all independently run from the trust. And he says he makes quite a good living, and I'm really pleased to hear that. But it's just nice here, and the sun's come out as well, right at the end of the day. Really, really pleasant. But which of these shelters was your favourite? I have two. The historic one on Temple Place, and the one down by the Cadogan Pier, overlooking the River Thames, where I had a coffee. I think that's an absolutely beautiful looking shelter, and such a fantastic location as well. But there we go. Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know which was your favourite shelter. But this is where I end this video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon for another adventure from somewhere else.